Hey guys, this is Neil at Callus Machine Works. Today I'm going to explain how to install and remove your GoPro camera from our GoPro mount. Okay, this is the 3D printed mount that we sell on our site. This is used with a lot of our popular frames. Okay, I'm also going to explain the ND filter situation and how to install the ND filter and remove it from the lens guard, and then how to install this lens guard onto the mount with the camera installed. All right, so before I begin, I want to explain some of the sort of design elements of this mount. So the way that this thing works is the camera is held into the mount by way of friction. All right, that's the only thing that's holding it in place. Now, with this type design, there is a very fine line between the camera being too tight in the mount and the camera slipping out and sliding and being too loose. And so, for instance, if you crash into the ground, your camera comes popping out. All right, now that difference to determine if it's going to be just right or too tight or too loose can be a thousandth of an inch, couple thousandths of an inch. So what happens with these 3D printed filaments is the batch can change from roll to roll. So when we go and buy this 3D printed material from our vendors, one batch can be different than another. Okay, so you could have a mount that fits a little bit different than somebody else. Okay, and I'm going to explain how to account for any situation you have with regards to that. Okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. All right, you take the camera, you slip it in like this, and it's seated in like this. All right, so let's say that we want to remove it. Well, you don't just start pulling here. All right, what you want to do is take and position your fingers up against this side of the mount, just like this. Push it as far as you can, then go ahead and grab the lens like this and pull it out. Okay, if you put your camera in here and you find that you can't seem to do that, it's a bit too tight, all right? Even whenever you push on here, this camera is not moving, all right? So there is a solution for that. It's really pretty simple. What you're gonna do is get a heat gun. If you're saying to yourself right now, well, I don't have a heat gun. All right, we're going to have an FPV intervention with you. Okay, all of us are going to get together with you and we're going to have a discussion. You need to have a heat gun. That is absolutely unacceptable if you don't have a heat gun, and your wife's hairdryer does not count. Go get a heat gun. All right, so take your heat gun. Let's turn mine on. Mine's really loud. And what you want to do, let's make sure this thing is hot. What you want to do is heat this thing up. All right, make sure not to melt the plastic, obviously, but just take and heat it up all over the various surfaces here. Get the entire thing nice and hot. Okay, there we go. All right. It takes my heat gun a while to turn off. Okay, so the GoPro mount is warmed up. Take the GoPro, stick it in the mount, and let this thing cool down. All right, let all this cool down to room temperature. Once that's done, I'll show you the next step. So this is now cooled down to room temperature, and now you should be able to do this same process. So take your fingers, push on the side, and pull it out. What's happened when you heated this thing up and you put the GoPro in it is the GoPro expanded this mount just a little bit. it expanded it out, and now you're going to have a perfect fit between these two elements. All right, simple as that. All right, it shouldn't be too difficult to get this thing out. You're going to need to use a little bit of pressure to pull it, but that's what it should look like. Okay, so there's that. So now, let's talk about this ND filter guard here and your ND filter. All right, so what you want to do, make sure this thing isn't too gummed up here. There's a slot in the side of this, all right? And you're going to want to take, this is not a perfect square, this is a rectangle. So you're going to want to take the short side and line it up to the opening, like this. Okay, this is also a pressure fit, so it's going to take a little bit of pressure and begin pushing this in. Now, a brand new lens guard, it's going to be a little more difficult than you're seeing in this video for you to push it in. This is a used guard that I've been using for a number of weeks now. So you're going to have to give a little bit more pressure than I am, all right? You're going to have to work it in, but you're going to get this in here. Now, the last little bit, you'll notice that it's sometimes this ND filter will start to sort of bind up in the slot. So you may have to take and sort of move the material around and wiggle it and whatnot until you get everything seated. Then you can take a driver. This is just a hex head driver, and there's a little hole in the side of this. Or I'm sorry, there's the open slot on the side of this. And then you can take, very carefully, make sure that you're lining this thing up. You don't want to scratch the ND filter, and just push it the rest of the way in. All right, make sure it's seated in there. Go back and clean it off. All right, nice and clean. Now, on the bottom of this, you will see some little catches. There's a small one and a big one. Okay, the small one goes to the bottom of the camera. All right, and what you want to do is line this thing up, and then insert the catch into the groove on the mount. Okay, once it's lined up, then you are going to take and start working this ND filter over the lens of the camera. Now keep in mind, again, when you have a new filter guard, it's going to take a little bit of wiggling and moving to expand it around the lens of the camera. Okay, so work it until it gets expanded and over this. Then take your driver, come through here, pull this back, and then you can push it the rest of the way. All right, and now you can see it's perfectly seated and positioned and mounted onto the camera mount. All right, so what I usually do is go ahead and make sure that the ND filter is seated properly, because it'll move around once you put it on there. Push it a little bit more, and there we go. All right, now you've got the single best camera mount in the industry for this GoPro. All right, I have personally I have smashed this GoPro well over 100 times, and I've never damaged it once with this mount. Okay, so it's a good one. You're gonna like it. All right, that's how it works. Now, if you want to get this thing out, watch this. You can just take your fingers, pull this off, slide that out, push this on the side, camera comes out. Easy peasy. There we go. If you have any other questions about any of this, feel free to email us at support@catalystmachineworks.com or info@catalystmachineworks.com. Until next time.